Hey, this is Ralph, and I want to continue working on some charts in Excel in order to display some visual graphics, a visual representation of some data here. So I've got my data, and what I want to move into is some line charts. And once again, I'm going to select all of my data, and I'm selecting from A1 down to H13, which includes this blank cell A1, but also includes my column labels and my row labels. I'm going to go to my Insert ribbon. I'm going to head over to the line chart. And I'm going to choose this first option, just a standard line chart, so I can check this out. There we go. And basically, I've got this data, and this isn't too bad. We can learn a lot from this. For instance, we can see that homes 200,000 to 299, so homes in the 200,000 range, those have been the biggest sellers over time. And we can see that with our number of units sold over here on my vertical axis. These are in thousands. So basically we can look at in June of 2011, homes in this price range sold approximately 10,000 units. Okay, 10,000 units. Whereas in February of 2012, they sold about 12,000 units. And we can certainly see the change in growth. And then you can also start to make comparisons. Now, where you might start to think, this is kind of interesting, is when you see kind of inverse relationships. So between my red and blue lines, they cross over, and then when the red was peaking, the blue was troughing. And this is, of course, these are homes. The red is homes 150 to 199, and the blue is under 150. So that has a little bit more of an inverse relationship. And then you can see the really steady relationship amongst these more expensive homes. So they're really kind of keeping in line with each other. So this is kind of this is a simple little line chart comparing trends. And that's what you want to use line charts most often, is you want to see a change over time. Let's go ahead and delete this one. And let's check out a couple other things we could do. Let's select just some of the data. So I'm going to select cell A1 to H1 to get my empty cell and my column labels. And then I want to look at just the past few months. So I'm going to hold down my control key, and I'm going to select these last four rows, basically the 2012 data. So I'm just reducing the number of cells that are going to be part of my chart. And I'll click on Insert Line, and this time I'll just do actually I'm going to do this first one, then I'll jump over to Stacked Line. So I'll just go ahead and click same line chart, just so we can kind of get a different view of the data. And it's a much more interesting look, I think, because when you limit this range, you can make drastically different interpretations. And this one doesn't look as good at all. Even though there was a peak up here, all you see is this kind of negative trend, with house sales moving lower and lower. But if you looked at this over the past 12 months, well, yeah, it's a little bit of a dip. It doesn't seem quite as dramatic. So always be wary whenever you're looking at charts, especially in newspapers and things like that, that are they showing you, if they're showing you 4 months of data or 6 months of data, how come they're not showing you 12 months of data? Now the other way can be true too. If you show, like, let's say, what if they showed 36 months of data? What you might see is a very level flat line, but if they wanted to emphasize home sales going up or down, they might only show you a 3 or 4 or 6 month period that dramatizes what they're trying to get across. So really easy to kind of skew the interpretations or the impressions a chart gives just by selecting the range. But this is kind of an interesting, I can make good comparisons at the very least. I might not be smart to make an assumption over the future growth over just this 4-month snapshot, but I can at the very least I can say that, well, gee, homes in these months, at various sale prices did follow a trend. They were with each other. So I could say that, all right, so be it. In January, February, March, and April, homes in the 200,000 to 299,000, they had the greatest number of sales for those time periods. I'm going to go ahead and delete this. And let's look at another chart. This one I'll go back to all my data, and kind of like a stacked column chart, I'm going to do a stacked line chart. So I'll go ahead and click on Insert, Line, And here we go, stacked line chart. And once again, this is good if you want to show totals, but since it's a line chart, we can also look at trends. Now the only problem with this, and this would require some explanation, with footnotes and things like that, is somebody glancing by this can't tell that these are totals. For instance, they might look and say, wow, this blue line is for houses over 750,000, this bluish gray line up here. In fact, let me just go and click on that. And make that a little bit bigger real quick. There we go. Just make that a little bit bigger. So they might be looking at this blue line saying, wow, based on this chart, it looks like homes over 750,000 sold more than any of these other categories. That seems a little bit weird, but that's a little bit misleading also, because this really represents the total of all houses. So we can say that in March of 2012, approximately 35,000 units were sold, okay? Not 35,000 of expensive homes, but 35,000 units of all homes together. So you just have to be careful at how you represent this kind of data. And that, well, we can see trends. We can see that the red line, 150 to 199, was much flatter than homes that were more expensive. So in the beginning part of 2012, there was more of a peak with expensive homes than there were with lower priced homes. So different way of looking at that data. Let's go ahead and delete this one and try one more. Okay, let's go ahead and select, insert, line, and I'm going to do the 100% stacked line. And let's see what kind of understanding we can gain from this one. Now with the 100% stacked line, basically this is a percentage ratio of all homes sold. So what I can see is this red line. It stands out. So let's go ahead and look at this one real quick. And let me just change that line a little bit thicker. So I'm looking at this red line, and I can see red line represents houses 150 to 199. So basically this red line, it looks overall, let's say, relatively flat. It started off at being around, let's just assume that's around 41, 42%, and it finished off being around 39% or something like that. And it pretty much stayed in that range. Now that doesn't mean that home sales for this price point stayed flat. It simply means that home sales at this price point stayed roughly the same percentage of total home sales. So if all home sales increased, including $150,000 to $199,000 houses, assuming they all increased, this particular price point stayed flat as a ratio compared to those others. So it really requires a little bit of understanding of what this chart means in order to understand information. But this chart is not showing us number of houses sold. It's simply showing us the ratio of mid-priced houses compared to all houses overall. So different kind of data, another line chart.